you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. It is May 11th, 2014. I'm Matt Dillahunty. This is Jen Peeples. Welcome back.
Thank you. You too.
Who you've just been recently re-elected as president of the ACA. What's that like?
Indeed. You should know.
Oh, yes. Sorry. It's so this is a live public access television show out of Austin, Texas. And you can... now I've completely forgotten what it is that I'm supposed to say, but we will be taking your calls, and the number will be at the bottom of the screen as well. And if you'd like to reach us, you can go through TV at atheist-community.org. Ooh, there was a weird sound.
Yeah.
I only have kind of one announcement, and that is that on May 31st in Memphis, Tennessee, I will be doing a debate against Saitin Bruggencate, who is a presuppositionalist apologist. And if you're in the Memphis area, or you're close enough to the Memphis area and you'd like to attend, we're looking for people to kind of drum up interest and help promote it and everything. So you can drop us an email, or drop me an email at tv at atheist-community.org, and we'll see what we can do. But it should be, I would say it should be a good time, but I actually expect it to be incredibly frustrating for most of the people who are there.
Yeah. And just to preview how frustrating it will be, if you happen to be in the Memphis area, ask yourself, could you be wrong about that? And you'll have a preview.
How do you know?
What it's like.
But and you wanted to say something about Abraham.
Yeah.
Father Abraham.
So we got this email. We get email every week. And we got an email from some guy who, he was presented with this really strange apologetic. Basically that, the story of the binding of Isaac, where Abraham is instructed by God to take Isaac up to this mountaintop and sacrifice him because, God said so or something. Anyway, and so Abraham doesn't question this. He just does it. According to the Bible, he saddles his ass and he goes up to the mountain and he starts to do this thing. And then at the last minute, of course, God intervenes, according to the legend, and stops, and he sacrifices a ram instead. Well, according to this weird apologetic, Abraham actually wasn't going on faith, that this was not a test of faith for Abraham, it was a test of reason. And Abraham knew that God wasn't actually going to make him sacrifice Isaac, and what he had to do was overcome his emotions surrounding this commandment to kill his child, and actually just go up there and bind Isaac and act like he was going to do it. And then God said, no, never mind, do the ram instead.
But why would you have to overcome any emotions if you knew that something wasn't going to happen?
Well, exactly. Yeah, why would there be any kind of emotional thing? It would be like, the pretend sacrifices that you do at Halloween, where you're not actually like eviscerating somebody, you're just pretending for the people that may be observing. But my thought on that was that not only does this not make any sense, it also kind of highlights the fact that, at least on some level, Abraham thought this was something that his God would do. The fact that he didn't object to it, even in the case of Lot, where, God was going to basically destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and, Abraham was intervening on Lot's behalf, and actually on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, saying, hey, if there's 50 righteous people, will you still do it? What about if there's 10 righteous people? What about 5? What about 1? Just one.
I mean, negotiate.
But he didn't do any of that stuff when it came to, kill your son. He just did it.
Is it just me, or every time we get into something like this where God's going to kill people or destroy people, and you try to point out kind of the absurdity or immorality of this, and the believers come back with well, these people were deserving of this. I have the He Had It Coming song from Chicago playing in my head on a loop. He had it coming.
Well, there's that, but this guy's not even claiming he had it coming. It's just that we've totally misunderstood this. And so not only do I think we didn't misunderstand it, and the fact that it highlights the fact that this is something they would have expected their God to order them to do at that time.
Yep.
God's around there, plenty of gods ordered child sacrifice, so this wouldn't have been unusual. And so Yahweh apparently was no different than any other God that would have ordered a child sacrifice. But
now the bad counter-apologetic is, which I've heard from a number of atheists and everything else, is why would God need to test Abraham? Clearly God knows. And the easy answer to this is that that wasn't the point. The purpose wasn't to test Abraham for God's benefit. The purpose was to test for Abraham's benefit. God already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So that, but my take on this has always been that the one and only correct answer, if you believe God, and if the God that you know would never ask you to kill your kid, then if somebody comes to you and asks you to kill your kid, then it's clearly not God. And so it's depart from me, unclean spirit, for my God would never ask this.
Right.
And the fact that Abraham went ahead with this shows that Abraham had in his mind the idea that God could and would do this. And God rewarded that concept in Abraham's mind. And so now this person's writing to say, no, actually Abraham knew God wouldn't do this.
Which, and that was my other point, is that there's no scriptural support at all for this apologetic. None.
No,
at no point does it say, hey, Abraham knew the whole time, and God just had to get him to overcome this emotional objection, which there was no emotional objection.
Yeah, I mean, it's stupid. Here, let's pretend. Jen, wink, wink, I would like for you to bring your son over to our house and we will slaughter him in the backyard.
Screw you.
See, that's what the response would be.
Yeah.
But if Jen knows that I'm not serious, then she might wink back and play along knowing we're not actually getting, what the hell is going on here? Yeah. All right, God, I'll kill him for you. I mean, there's no emotion. This is just absolutely horrible apologetic. And, it's the type of thing we get when you begin with the idea that the Bible is true and good, and you run into complications and contradictions and absurdities. And so religion, the process of apologetics, does a tap dance to try to rationalize these things away. And I saw it when I did the debate in San Antonio, where we talked about slavery. And basically they would say, well, God was just trying to soften our views on slavery. So he knew he couldn't get rid of it outright, so he just kind of legislated it so that we would eventually get rid of it. No, he's God. If he can say, thou shalt not kill, and it's binding, then he can say, thou shalt not own another human being, and it's binding. Yeah. Well, this is we were talking about prisoners, and this was actually for their benefit.
Well, but correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a commandment in the alleged 10 Commandments that says thou shalt not commit adultery.
Yes.
And yet we still have adultery, but we don't have slavery anymore.
I know.
So go figure.
I don't know why it was so hard to get. Why is it that their God is so inept at communicating? I mean, this is the supreme ruler of the universe who's supposed to be infinitely more wise than we are, and yet somehow he completely fails to communicate things that we can communicate rather trivially. Hey, why is it wrong to own other people? Well, would you like to be owned? Oh, no. Well, cool. And if there's no guarantee that you're going to be the one who's in a position of owning rather than being owned, which is a better society, the one that prohibits owning other people or the one that allows it? Well, the one that prohibits it. Done. Yeah. Why is it that God can't communicate that way?
I don't know, because that seems like it would be a trivially easy thing for an omnipotent God to do.
Yeah. Plus, if this was even our confused misunderstanding of this, you'd think that God could clear this up, maybe in Bible 2.0, otherwise known as the New Testament.
Yeah.
And yet that doesn't happen. Jesus doesn't come along and say, hey, that stuff you thought we said about slavery, you guys got it wrong. This is what we actually meant. Instead, he said, as slaves, obey your masters. Which kind of seems to reinforce this even further.
Yeah.
This is, I don't get it. I don't understand why their God is stupider than we are. I mean, it seems to me that you've got this God who is not particularly bright, who is inept at communicating, that is petty and vengeful. And is it more plausible that this God actually exists, or that this is a reflection of the invention of the people who created him? And I think I'll go with the latter.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's bad apologetics all the way around, and that includes some responses from our side as well.
Yep.
I don't know. If you know why your God is so stupid, please feel free to go ahead and call in and explain it to us, because this whole thing about worship comes up. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't worship any being. I don't understand the need for it.
Yeah, I don't either.
I respect, sure, I respect lots of people. I respect even some fictional characters, because the whole purpose of a fiction is to kind of portray a caricature of a real person, real qualities, and real people. I might even greatly respect and revere some people, but this idea of worship, this idea of dying to yourself in deference to somebody else, I don't see any value in doing that. But I definitely don't see any reason to do it to somebody who is more stupid, more immoral. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that the only justification for it is fear. Mm-hmm. God can squash you like a bug. Fear is the beginning of wisdom. Fear the Lord. And then, of course, there's that verse that says, in love there is no fear. So that's potentially another contradiction in your book. I don't know. But if you've got the answers, by all means, pick up the phone and let us know. We want to go ahead and get to callers?
Yeah, let's go.
So Rory in Vancouver, thanks for holding.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Pretty well.
All right.
Good. I'll just start off by saying I'm a big fan of the show. I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
And keep up the good work.
Thanks.
So I'll keep it quick. I'm an atheist. And my question is basically about finding the right way to approach people about their beliefs. Because there's a big spectrum of actions you can take. Peter Boghossian would argue that you should go into churches and start, attacking people's beliefs right there. And other people would argue that you should just let people believe what they want.
Wait. You're saying Pete would advocate walking into people's churches and attacking their beliefs in the church?
I've read this in his book called A Manual for Creating Atheists.
Yeah, I haven't finished it. I don't.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right.
It could be that he's actually advocating that. I'll talk to him, because we've spoken several times. But I would not advocate walking into somebody's church and disrupting their service to tell them why you think they're wrong.
No, exactly, and neither would I. That's the problem I'm having here, because the problem in general is that having unfounded views gives all extreme views a form of legitimacy. That's what he's arguing, and what the Four Horsemen are also arguing. So my question is generally, how do you be proactive? Where is the proper place to draw the line?
Sure.
On the one extreme, you've got tolerance completely. On the other hand, you've got going and attacking people directly. So, what do you think is the best way to be proactive about that?
Sure, and I'll let both of us kind of take a swing at that real quick. We take incoming calls. I don't make outgoing calls. I don't go around knocking on people's doors or walking into their churches saying, hey, have you stopped believing in Jesus or Allah yet? I can fix that. My general rule is to engage people at the level that they're comfortable being engaged. If I hear somebody praying at the table next to me at a restaurant and dinner, I'm not going to go over and tell them how silly it is for them to be praying. But if they ask or they strike up a conversation, I'm going to be honest, and I will defend rigorously and without mercy attack fallacies and irrationality wherever they're presented. This is the podium. This and producing information, getting it out there, is to make sure that people who are interested in having the conversation can be a part of it.
Yeah,
right.
and that's basically, my thought is that if you knock on my door, you're fair game, and it's on. You knock on my door to preach to me or to tell me about the good news or something like that, It's on.
And you better hope you didn't wake me up or interrupt something important.
Yeah.
Because, I'm moody.
And my problem now is that I can't actually get like the Jehovah's Witnesses to knock on my door anymore. I think they've got my house, like there's an X on my house or something on their map because they don't come by anymore.
You are the Jehovah's Witness equivalent of Scientology's suppressive person.
I am like Satan incarnate for those guys. So that, they don't come by anymore. And kind of the same thing with the Mormon missionaries. They don't come over anymore. Scary lesbian that lives there.
I ordered a copy of the that's where the scary lesbian lives. Stay away. I ordered a copy of the Book of Mormon, and one of the things that they do is they follow up with a phone call. And I actually had like a 2-hour conversation with this young Mormon boy about Mormonism, and he had, he listened and said that he'd check out the show. Now I don't know what happened to him, but Beth has engaged Jehovah's Witnesses when they come knocking on our door.
But I mean, I don't like hang out outside of the Jehovah's Witnesses Kingdom Hall and accost them as they're walking in, for their services or anything. I don't.
First of all, it's private property.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what, and
I'm not necessarily condoning going to attacking, to directly challenge people in their own places, right? Like
Right.
Matt has said before, the ability to swing my arms ends at their nose. But the fact remains that a lot of the views that are out there are very harmful for society in general.
Sure.
And you should exercise your free speech rights.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that you wait around for the conversation. There's plenty of ways to be proactive, like the National Day of Prayer. One of the responses is the National Day of Reason, and there are atheists who will stand out there at the Capitol, with signs and advocating for reason and standing in opposition to violations of church-state separation and the preferential treatment of religion and prayer and just religiosity in general in the country. We need people who are out and outspoken. The Out campaign, I'm not sure about your take on Pete, but I haven't read that part, so I'll take a look. But I don't know all 4 of the 4 horsemen, but I can say that I don't get anything from what they've said that they would be advocating for walking into people's churches or creating disruptions of that sort. The Out campaign is to encourage people to be out, to speak out, to act out, but that doesn't include kind of the sort of belligerent marching into churches to tear down the crosses type. That's bizarre.
Well, yeah, not only that, but it's not even, this is not behavior that we would tolerate in the Atheist Community of Austin. At our events, we've always said that, if you're atheist or atheist friendly, you're welcome to come to any of our events. But, if you're there to preach, proselytize, or provoke, or punch, in some cases, you're not welcome there. And, if someone showed up and tried doing something like that, I'd have no qualms at all about removing them, by whatever means, up to and including calling the police.
Yeah, we go to, after dinner, we'll be going to, it's El Arroyo,
El Arroyo, yeah.
And so if some theist came up there and wanted to have a discussion, I'm all in favor of it.
Yeah.
As long as that discussion is not disrupting the dinner or bothering everybody else, in which case that discussion needs to move somewhere else. But if somebody shows up to just preach, then we're going to remove them.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, and I'll finish off by saying that I'm not saying that the 4 horsemen endorse going into churches or anything, but that they're challenging the taboo of not asking those questions, because that's what I'm trying to get at, is that you should really, the time superstition and tolerating these, unquestioned beliefs is sort of, what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, I am not in any way an accommodationist, and I am not in any way the advocating the kind of sit back and let them have their religion. No, I think there's a distinct lack of empathy in that position as well, which is not only do I care about the truth, but I care about what kind of world I live in, and I care about other people. And so if they have beliefs that are harmful to themselves and others, then I feel that I have kind of a moral obligation to some extent to address that. Now, I can't force the conversation on somebody who's unwilling to have it. But I will make it very clear that I'm willing to have that conversation at the drop of a hat.
Right, and that was really what you answered my question, basically, is how to be proactive. So thanks very much for your feedback.
Thanks, Rory.
All right.
Appreciate
Great
it.
job.
Thanks.
All right. Zack in Fort Bragg, how are you, and thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. I'm actually glad that I called in today because I know you two are both prior service. And first off, I want to say I watch your show all the time, and it's really awesome what you guys are doing.
Well, thank
Thanks.
you.
And just recently, we were fortunate enough to go down to Corpus Christi to interact on a podcast, Atheist Airwaves, did it at the university. But afterwards, we went to the USS Lexington, and I served on a carrier, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, CVN 71. And so it was kind of weird to be on a carrier that was both 40 years older than mine,
Yeah.
but there were striking similarities. And I've been out since 95. And so walking back into that and taking Beth on a tour and showing her all this stuff that was kind of like what I experienced was really weird.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay.
So what do you got for us?
I was just calling in today. I mean, I think one of the big things that's overlooked when people talk about separation of church and state is generally in the military. I mean, I see it all the time. The fact that, churches are paid for by the taxes and all the mandatory prayers and stuff like that.
Wait, mandatory prayers?
Typically, well, it's not prayer, but in the change of command ceremonies.
Yeah, the benediction and the invocation.
Yeah.
Yes. Which
Yes.
actually, if you look at FM 22-5, that's, for those of you who don't know, that's drill and ceremonies. It also has all of the protocols for different ceremonies, including a change of command. Invocations and benedictions are not a traditional part of that ceremony. That was something that was added by fundamentalist Christians who tried to bootstrap prayer into everything.
So, I did not know that actually. I just know that every time that there is a change of command ceremony, they pretty much say you will bow your head whenever.
And you don't have to. They can't order you to bow your head. They can't order you to pray.
Yeah, I know.
On the other hand, if you don't, if you don't,
exactly.
you stand out and you can end up getting, extra duty or whatever for some other reason.
Yeah.
Except it's a real problem.
In my change of command, there was no invocation or benediction. So.
Yeah.
I didn't even invite the chaplain. So.
That's. I would have loved to go.
Yeah, and also it's just I don't understand how. Well, I guess I can understand, but how there's so many religious people in the military, but every time that anybody asks me, or they find out that I'm an atheist, they are completely stunned. They're shocked.
Yeah.
They're like, "How is that possible?"
So are you a member of the Military Association of Atheists and Freethinkers?
No, I'm not.
So
I went to their website once, but
it might be something to look into because that group, along with some others, are attempting to kind of oppose some of these religious intrusions into the military. It's very, very, very difficult, and one of the problems is that your job and your promotions and all that can be at risk. It ends up putting people in this "don't rock the boat" position, which is incredibly unfair, considering that it's a violation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you guys, being in the military, you see a wide range of variety of people.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the smartest people I've ever met are military, and I work in special operations, which especially this area is filled with very, very brilliant people. Mm-hmm. And it shocks me that more people aren't open to atheism. And
there's a lot of incredibly brilliant people who are theists of one stripe or another. And there's lots of reasons behind it. I think Michael Shermer pointed out that smart people are really good at rationalizing things that they came to believe for not smart reasons.
Yeah.
It's kind of a byproduct of how our brain works. And you don't like to think that you're wrong or that you could be wrong. And if you believe something, you're more likely, and especially if you make a public profession of this belief, you're more likely to defend it, even in the face of reason and evidence. So, one of the big problems I have with the military is the chaplaincy.
Yeah.
And people asked the other day if I thought that there needed to be secular chaplains. And my answer is that if we can't actually get rid of the chaplaincy, then yes, there need to be secular chaplains there.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what I'd like to do is get rid of the chaplaincy. And I say that as they shouldn't be paid, ranked military members.
Right.
Should churches provide volunteer or civilian paid chaplains to be available to the troops? And I say absolutely, because there are people's religious freedom
Right.
may necessitate that they speak to a member of their religion, a chaplain or whatever, and I'm not trying to take that away. But the way the chaplaincy had been used traditionally, at least when I was in, is if you needed time off for personal reasons because somebody died or there was grieving or you needed counseling, the only a place you could go was to the chaplain. And while they were supposed to do this in a non-denominational fashion, that wasn't always the case. And my thinking is, why don't we just have trained counselors that are properly educated in secular counseling methods?
Yeah, and my thought is that, the historical justification for having a chaplain's corps has always been what Matt was saying, is that soldiers have a right to, express their religious beliefs and to have, that part of their constitutional rights served while they're in the military. Well, we also have free speech and a free press, but we don't, when it comes to, having press access to what's going on in an area of operations, we embed reporters. Why can't we embed chaplains the same way? That would solve the problem, and then it would become the denomination's responsibility to pay the chaplains and everything, and then the military could just provide whatever standard logistical support they provide to, for example, reporters.
I'm pretty much convinced that if you replace the chaplaincy with actual trained psychologists and counselors, that you would end up with better service to the troops.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, because all of these chaplains, that's a head count in the military. And instead of having, these religious people as, head count, let's have that overhead filled with trained counselors who actually can do stuff for people. Because I'm convinced that the chaplains, there are a few that have some actual credentials for, secular counseling and everything. Most of them don't. They have these, Christian counseling credentials or whatever, which is crap.
I would never say that all chaplains are crap at counseling.
Right.
Some of them are probably exceptional.
Yeah, some of them actually have real credentials.
Just like there are some pastors and preachers who are really good at counseling.
Yeah, but too many of them just have the bare minimum, qualifications, if you could even call it that. And I think a lot of them do more harm than good.
And one of the things we could maybe do is make sure that every chaplain is required to have those sorts of credentials, and then their religion becomes a secondary issue to it, where if needed, they could counsel somebody on a religious matter as well.
Right.
But if I was experiencing PTSD or other difficulties and I needed counseling, sending me to a chaplain is almost certainly going to do more harm than good.
Yeah. Yeah,
well,
because
I had that same problem before too. Like 4 years ago when I went through a divorce, I had nowhere to really turn to, so they suggested I go see the chaplain. And when I went there, I've always been an atheist, never had a problem, so I thought, what the hell, I'll go anyways. And I immediately, it was one time in, and I was gone. That was it.
Yeah.
Because he immediately, he tried to help. He was very comforting, but then he started trying to shove religion in, and I was like,
Yeah. Well, and when I actually first joined the Army and went to basic training and everything, the only people I knew that actually went to church, I guess there was probably a handful of people in my platoon that were actually religious, but most of the people that went to church on Sundays just went because it was probably the only air-conditioned building on post.
Yeah, no, it was the only place, and then some services offer food.
Yeah, so you get to
get you out of cleaning the barracks.
Yeah, so you get to sit.
Yeah, it was either you clean or you can go to church.
Yeah. Yeah, the only time I went to the chapel for anything was the mandatory briefings, and that's just the location of the briefing. The rest of the time, the rest of the platoon would march off to chaplain, and I'd stay behind and do my laundry and get,
And
all my
I was a
details done.
believer when I was in,
Yeah.
and still the only time I recall ever going to chapel was in boot camp to avoid doing some work.
Yeah.
It was either you're going to the chapel or you're going to do some work, and so I went. And my objection, which I'm surprised I don't hear more, is that this kind of ecumenical, watered down, let's try to be everything to everybody's service that quite often goes on, was kind of offensive.
Yeah.
Somebody's phone's buzzing.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so I have that objection. What I'm curious because I don't know. Obviously, you're in the military; all your health benefits are covered, and we have health staff and everything else. Do they have paid trained counselors outside of the chaplaincy?
Yes.
And if they, okay, but if you needed to see, let's say, a civilian counselor, would your health benefits actually cover that?
There are civilian counselors available on post that you can see. Now, some of them may not be qualified to treat certain things. So there may be some counselors, for example, that specialize in, let's say, alcohol dependency or something like
Sure.
that. And so that may not be the best person to talk to if you're going through a divorce.
My phone just
And
buzzed.
also, if you go to see a psychologist, then you also have the chance of getting flagged. I mean, a lot of things start flying up in the air, and people start getting worried. So
Well, yeah, and that's the
why I
other
went to
thing.
the chaplain instead.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is if you go see a counselor, then that's noted in your medical or your medical records that you went to see, somebody like in community mental health, and that could impact something like your security clearance or something like that. If somebody says, hey, what's going on here? And certainly you don't want to give up a lot of information about why you went to see somebody in community mental health, but yeah, that can cause people to start asking questions about
Precisely, yeah.
And that's
your
actually part of a
stability.
bigger problem that's not limited to the military at all,
Yeah.
and that is our society's general stigma that we apply to mental health issues. The very idea that, it's pretty simple. You may suffer from an actual condition that requires medication, or you may just need to talk to somebody because that helps.
Yeah.
And yet
I
somehow,
personally think that that's mostly the case. It's like they just need to talk to people. I mean, I've had problems
but you know
from
what's
time to
quite
time,
often
but
the
it's
case.
just talk.
Either way, I would rather someone, in either situation, I would rather someone go to a professional counselor and get whatever treatment they need, whether that's medication and talking or just talking, than to sit there and suffer in silence, because that's what's driving our suicide rate in the military.
and the shootings.
Yeah, and the shootings and everything else, when people feel like they have no other recourse.
Yeah, if I find out that, we definitely need to eliminate the stigma with mental
Yeah.
health issues just universally. But when I find out that somebody's been seeing a therapist or gone in for counseling, to me, that's a positive because I'm less worried about them than I am about the people who probably need to do that and won't. And so let this stuff build up.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks a lot for calling, Zach. We appreciate it.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you guys.
Thanks.
Take care. All right. We have Spencer in Marshall, Minnesota.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are
Good.
you?
Good. I just like to talk about the fact of the soldiers dying in America after they come back from war, and the fact is that they're dying, they're killing themselves doing these shootings because they have no one to believe in, they have no faith
How do you know that?
for
Yeah.
a higher power.
How do you know that that's a reason?
How do I know exactly that that's the reason? I don't think anybody could actually say what is the exact reason. They can
Okay,
only
so-
give-
then
why
are
did you do that?
Why are you doing that?
what?
Okay, I mean, if you can't demonstrate that that's the reason, if you can't give a reasonable explanation for why you think that's the cause, then why would you claim that it is?
Faith.
Okay, I'm not interested in appeals to
Yeah.
faith.
Spencer, have you ever served in the military?
No, but my entire family has.
Okay, so you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what these people are going through. You're just making an assumption.
No, not exactly making an assumption. You don't have to be in the military to understand something that goes on with a person's well-being in a hostile situation for another's freedom.
You have no idea what you're talking about.
But even
No, not even close.
even setting that aside, you don't have any justification for the explanation that you assert is true, and so you just make an appeal to faith. And so I'm completely uninterested in what you claim to know on faith.
Yeah.
Did you have something, I don't know, substantive to talk about?
Well, I was kind of wondering what your not necessarily higher power is, because I understand atheists don't believe in higher power. They believe in evidence. Evidence that can be proven to them, because it's not the person accusing someone, it's the person that's claiming something. But can you honestly say that you have no aspirations to what you're going to be doing, or that someone's actually looking out for you?
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't know what you mean by, can I honestly say that I don't have aspirations or that somebody's looking out for me?
Like, nobody's watching you?
You're watching, aren't you?
Yeah.
What? I'm not watching you, I'm hearing you.
Oh, okay. Well, we do a
okay.
live stream, so
Yeah.
some people actually watch.
Yeah, we're
but
on TV. Lots of people are watching.
There's
us.
several people in this room who are watching me. I don't think that's what you
Yeah.
meant, though.
No, you're not answering what I'm saying.
Well,
though.
ask a better
I'm
question.
telling you that I don't understand your question. Could you rephrase it in a way where it makes more sense so that I could answer?
Let me see here.
I could try and paraphrase it for you to make it easier for you, if you like. Do I have any reason to think that there is somebody observing everything in the universe? No.
Yes, that's
No.
what I'm trying to say.
Then the answer is no. I see no reason to think that there's somebody who's observing everything in the universe. Nor do I have any desire for that to be true. No.
It's actually slightly creepy.
Yeah, it really is. Jesus watches you while you masturbate is kind of, creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Because he could at least give you a reach around.
No, but where do you think your ancestors, your family that passes on, where do you think they go?
They don't go anywhere.
They're just dead.
They're dead.
They're just, so it's emptiness.
Where does the fire go when you blow the candle out?
Disappears, until
Yeah.
it's ignited again.
Congratulations. I don't see any reason to think that we operate any differently. As a matter of fact, I just watched a debate yesterday with Sean Carroll and Dr. Steve Novella. Actually, I should have said Dr. Sean Carroll because they're both doctors.
Yeah.
But they were debating this topic. It's actually online on YouTube on the Intelligence Squared debates, whether or not death is the end. And I agree with both of them wholeheartedly. Did before I watched, so I suppose I could be biased, but given what we understand and know about the brain and how it works and how the mind is what the brain does and how we can manipulate brains to produce all sorts of strange effects, including, hemispherectomy that produces two different personalities, one of which is a Christian, the other one's an atheist, and they're in one brain. What we know is that there doesn't appear to be any mechanism, and that because we can make alterations to the brain that produce all these effects that people report in near-death experiences, et cetera, that there's no good reason to think that anything that is me of substance exists beyond my death. This idea of a soul is probably, and I've said this several times kind of half jokingly, the most dead issue in religious theological teachings that I can imagine, because it's just so obviously not true.
And, I understand that, and I'm kind of in the midway between atheism and faith of Christianity and Jesus, because I can't honestly believe that Moses put one of female and male of each animal into a ship without them killing
that
each
was
other.
Noah. That was Noah, not
Noah,
Moses.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
And I don't believe either of them did it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe that happened, but it's hard for me to not and call it self-will or willpower per se, but I can't not believe in something because I need something to, put the fear into me to work towards something
Why?
else.
And
why is because I don't know. Maybe it's the way I was raised, which is unfortunate. But
it seems to me that you've fallen victim to what a lot of people have, which is religion tells you that you have a disease and then offers you its homeopathic cure for that disease.
Right.
The disease is fictional. You don't have a God-shaped hole in your heart, and there's no God to fill the not God-shaped hole that's not in your heart. It's just coming to the realization that this is the case. This is where religious indoctrination of kids does a lot of harm, because it instills ideas in them that simply have no basis in truth.
I would agree, but I don't want to sound childish or like I'm in high school, which I'm not. I'm 23. I've been out of high school for plenty of long time. But it seems to me that atheism is still a frowned upon decision on a lifestyle.
Okay, so two things. What do you think is the definition of atheism?
The non-belief of a higher power.
Okay, good enough. Does the fact that a view is frowned upon have any impact on the truth?
In some situations, yeah.
No, in no situation does. The truth is not impacted in any way by the number of people that believe the claim, or the sincerity of their belief, or how much it's looked down upon. The truth is the truth. There either is a God or there isn't, irrespective of anybody's opinion or what they think about atheists.
All right.
It doesn't change whether or not a God actually exists. If there is no God, and the atheists were justified in not believing that a God exists, then the fact that they were scoffed by people doesn't change what the truth is, right?
Right.
Okay. So if your reluctance to say that you don't, or to acknowledge that you don't believe in God, because it's kind of rapidly becoming clear that you actually don't have a positive belief that there's a God, it seems to me that you're just avoiding acknowledging that you don't believe in God out of fear of the repercussions of it.
Is it? I know this may sound kind of off track, but would it be considered like a gay child not wanting to acknowledge to their parents that they're gay because of their families saying we're all Christian?
Sure.
Not
wanting to publicly profess or acknowledge what is true is done all the time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change what's true. So the question is, do you actually believe that a God exists? And if the answer is no, then your reluctance to identify as an atheist is about something else entirely. It's about fear of repercussions and things like that.
Well, I recently went through a whole deal of alcoholism where I died for about a week. I mean,
Oh, come on now.
No, my heart stopped for about 5 minutes, something like that.
Okay.
I don't remember shit.
So you're rapidly approaching prank call status.
Yeah.
And
No.
I don't mean that to be insulting, but when you say that you died for about a week, and then upon correction, your heart stopped for about 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. I'm not prank calling. I'm not. I promise that. But I went through an alcoholic disorder, seizure, all that. I don't remember the last 2 weeks of my life, and my parents said that it was.
Wait, you don't remember the last 2 weeks?
Back,
like you don't remember the last 2 weeks, as in last week and the week before today?
No, not recently. A while ago. But I have a friend that's atheist, and he talks to me constantly about, why I believe in what I do, and slowly I'm starting to think that maybe I don't believe in a higher power. I just,
What I find strange.
I bullshit myself, maybe.
That may be the case, but what I find strange is that the note that's written down here next to your call from the call screener says that the Christian faith is the correct faith, and I have faith that the Bible is accurate. And so if that's the view that you're telling the screener when you call in, it just seems rather peculiar that in the span of, 5 minutes or so, now you're talking about how you might be just bullshitting yourself.
No, it's... I believe in Christ, but I don't know if I truly believe in what I'm hearing and what I'm saying.
What is it that you believe about Christ?
I believe that my grandmother that died is watching over me. I believe that
has nothing to do with the belief in Jesus Christ. That's the belief in an afterlife.
That's an afterlife, and that's what Jesus Christ talks about.
So the fact that those two are consistent and compatible doesn't mean that they're necessarily connected. You understand that, and granted, I don't see any reason to think there's an afterlife at all, but the idea of an afterlife is not necessarily tied to Jesus or the truth of Jesus. So, I mean, when you say you believe in Jesus because you think your grandmother's watching over you, not only are those two things not necessarily connected, but I don't see any good reason to believe either of them. So, I mean, there's just, this is all really muddled.
Well, I don't mean to sound confusing or anything. I don't know how to word what I'm saying, and I understand that I was screened, and I understand that, but it's just the fact that I don't know if someone's actually watching out from above me.
Cool.
Like,
I agree.
like,
I don't know either. Now, we're in the same position. Neither of us know whether or not anybody's looking out from above you.
and I can't prove it, which is unfortunate. I mean, I wish I could.
Me too.
But
that'd be really cool.
And I'm not trying to troll you guys or be in anything like that. I'm just
not
saying,
convinced, but as long as the conversation remains productive, that's fine. So what is it? Basically, you seem to be saying that you believe something and you're not sure if you believe it. And I don't understand how that's possible.
I believe in something, but what my friend points out constantly, he, as I say again, that he was an atheist, or he is an atheist, that a lot of his points make sense, but I just don't know how to differentiate between the truth and a lie.
Sure. Do you have any good reason to think that your grandmother is actually watching you? Or is it just something you wish were true?
I would think maybe a little bit of indoctrination has something to do with it, and
I'm not worried about how you came to think that. I'm asking you if you have any good reason to think that it's true, or is this just an expression that you wish it were true?
it's an expression that I wish was true, so I would not be an asshole the rest of my life.
Well, first of all, I don't know what having your grandmother watch out over you prevents you from being an asshole. If you don't want to be an asshole, don't be one. But when I ask if you have any good reason to think it's true and you acknowledge that you don't, then the follow-up question is, do you believe that it's actually true?
That she's watching over me?
Yes. Do you really believe that she's watching over you?
I would. It's kind of a half and half question.
No, it's binary. It's yes or no.
You're either convinced that she's watching you or you're not. And if you are, and if you're convinced that she's watching you after you've acknowledged that you don't have any good reason to think that, then now you're basically saying that you are acknowledging that you have an irrational belief, that you believe something with no good reason. And if your position is that you don't actually believe that she's watching you, but that you would just wish that she was watching you, then you don't actually have the belief. You have a desire for something to be true, and you're recognizing that there's no good reason to think it's true. And those are two completely different issues that you address in different ways. The first is when you discover that you're being irrational, that you believe something for no good reason, you stop believing it. As a matter of fact, you are almost forced and compelled by reason to acknowledge that in fact you don't believe it if you don't have a good reason. And if you're just talking about something you wish were true, well, that's interesting. And maybe we could delve into why you wish it was true, what benefit you think you're getting out of it, and how you might get that benefit somewhere else. But if the reality I live in is not impacted in any way by the reality I wish I lived in.
I think what you were saying in the first part, that I wish it was true without any proof that it could be true, fits me more or less, because I'm kind of on a teeter-totter as to what I should, or what I do, where I'm able to separate what I do believe in from what I know. And I know that there's no God beyond the stars. There's more stars beyond the stars. But I would like to know that. But
I don't really understand that, but
Yeah, you lost me.
I think probably the best thing to do, especially since this has run on for a while, is for you to stop, sit back, think about it, write down your thoughts, maybe even send an email to us, and then call back another time. It's by all means, don't stop asking questions and don't stop thinking about these things. It's the way you get to discover reality, is by saying, you know what, I believed this for a long time, or I was convinced that this was true for a long time. Do I have any good reason? No. well, then do I actually really believe it, or am I instead expressing a belief in belief, or a desire for something to be true? And if that's the case, why do I want this to be true? Is it because I'm afraid of dying? Is it because, I missed my grandmother? Is it because it would be really nice if death weren't the end? But if it turns out that you have no good reason to think that death isn't the end, that's important information to have. Because if you've got an afterlife coming, what you do in this life, pretty trivial. But if you have no afterlife coming and no good reason to think that there is one, what you do in this life is the only thing that matters.
But doesn't it make you afraid of nothing coming beyond this life?
Well, okay, I'll go to Mark Twain, who said that he was dead, or supposedly said that he was dead for 1 billion years before he was born, and it never bothered him one bit. So if I cease to exist, I'm not experiencing nothingness. There's no me to experience. I simply end. There will be no trauma, psychological or otherwise, because there's no psychology if I don't exist.
I think one of the things that we do is that since we're among the living still, and we've lost loved ones, every one of us has lost someone close to us at some point, and we understand the grief that we felt when we lost that loved one, and we think we're going to feel that when we die.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to believe that anything happens. We just stop.
The reason we don't want to die is because we want to keep living.
Yeah.
It's not because we're afraid of what it's like to be dead, because that's a nonsensical statement. It's not like anything to be dead. This process that we go through of dying, eventually, boom, you're done. That's it. So there's nothing to be afraid of after that. The only thing, the fear exists now, and the fear exists in recognizing that you're not going to keep living. Christopher Hitchens, as he was coming to the end of his life, said that it's not like having somebody come and tell you that the party's over and you have to leave. It's someone coming to tell you that the party's going to keep going, but you have to leave.
Yeah.
That's the difference. But
so it doesn't scare you at all with what happens. And I mean, granted, nobody understands what happens in the afterlife or what there is no afterlife, but it doesn't bug you as to when you die, what happens to you? Do you just, sit in a shithole for the rest of your life, or do you?
No, I don't think.
We mean after you die. You just said after you die, and then followed it up with for the rest of your life. Your life is over. There is no rest of your life.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say for the rest of your life. I mean, once you die, does
So
it
when I
scare
die,
you?
that's it. Game over. There's nothing. I don't have to worry about anything after that, because whatever part of me that there was that lived in my brain is no more. I'm done.
But it's not technically no more because you're still made up of matter.
Yeah, but
Which
doesn't matter. I mean, there's a great John Prine. The matter doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's a great John Prine song called "Please Don't Bury Me," where he talks about give my feet to the footloose, and basically, and I adhere to that. Part my matter out. Give everything that's useful, that's left over.
Yeah.
I'm not using it anymore. You're not going to offend me or bother me. Give it to everybody. Burn the rest.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference to me. It can't possibly make any difference to me, because at that point there's no me for it to make a difference to.
I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is there to be afraid of?
I don't know. I guess I'm just under the false hope of, once I die, as depressing as life can be, you go through your hardships, blah, blah, everybody does, that once I die, everything will be better. Does that make sense to you?
Okay, stop. If you're having feelings that once you die, everything will be better, you probably need to go see a counselor, because that is rapidly approaching kind of suicidal ideation. No, and get rid of it. Whether it was a slip or anything else, and I'm not saying that you're necessarily suicidal, when you start thinking along those lines that once you die everything will be better, you are approaching that sort of thought, and would benefit from some counseling, even if you're never actually going to end up suicidal. There are views that are entrenched in that that simply aren't healthy.
But not only that, but living your life afraid of what will happen when you die is a terrible way to live your life.
Yeah.
You're basically robbing yourself of a happy life just from this fear of what will happen when you die.
There's that prayer of God grant me the, serenity to accept the things I can't change, etc. Blah blah blah. I don't need the God part, but I'm down with the rest of it because worrying about things that you can't do anything about is absolutely futile.
All right, so basically you're saying just live your life as it is, and don't worry about it. And I mean, because once you die, you're dead.
Yep.
And if you don't want to be an asshole, don't be an asshole.
And if it turns out that we're wrong, and you've lived your life and enjoyed it without concern for an afterlife, and then once you're dead, you discover that there is some afterlife, what does that change?
Nothing.
There you go. You got a bonus.
That makes total sense. I acknowledge what you're saying, and I understand that.
Cool.
I appreciate that. You guys are fair. I mean, you're fucking smart. You guys know what you're talking about, and that really helps with what I'm going through.
Cool.
Well, good.
Awesome.
Thanks
Call back
very
some other
much.
time. Let us know how it turns out.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
So we actually have like 2 minutes left. And I think we'll go with Tim in Imperial, Missouri. You get the last minute or so. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, Tim.
Yeah, how you doing? I just this is the first time I've called into the show,
Okay.
and I just want to let you know that I love the show, and I am an atheist. I grew up in churches, Pentecostal, which actually kind of scared me as a kid.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, I would say about 7-8 years now, I haven't believed in God, and I consider myself an atheist, especially after watching your show. My question is how do I go about telling people without arguing or getting into big discussions about it? Because I'm not a scientist, but I believe in science.
So,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
So this idea of how do you tell people without getting into an argument?
Well, I mean, just when it seems like when you bring up religion, and I tell them I'm an atheist, my mom is a Christian, and
Mine too.
She was pretty, when I told her, she actually took it pretty well, which surprised me.
Mine too.
Yeah.
But some people and I don't like talking about it at work, and I really don't usually talk about it at work.
Me too.
But it seems like is there any easy way of telling somebody that you're an atheist and why?
I just, if it comes up and it's appropriate to mention it, which is kind of rare, depending on the situation, but I just put it out there, and then if somebody wants to talk about that, that's fine. If they want to get mad about it, I'm not responsible for their emotional reaction to it, and I'm generally not going to engage with someone especially if it's someone I care about, and they're going to get angry over it.
And on that note, we're done. The credits are up, and they're closing it down right now. I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We'll see you all next week.
All righty, thank you.
Right,
Bye-bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Hey, Will, you still there?
Yes.
So Jen and I, neither one have actually read through the court's opinion. I wanted to tell the screener just to have you call back next week where I can maybe talk about it some more. I don't really want to comment on it too much until I've read the specifics of the opinion so that I can address specifically what was said.
All right.
So I will try and read it this weekend, and maybe you can call back next week.
Okay. I mean, there was that, and then there was something related to that I wanted to talk to you about, but that guy took all the time.
Yep. I appreciate you hanging on this whole time. Maybe I'll get a chance to talk to you next week.
Okay. One other thing I want to say, I heard you guys chit-chatting before the show. I think it would be much better if you did have bourbon.
Yeah. Yep. Good call. Thanks, Will.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Is this Rob? Hey, Rob? Hello?
Hello? Nope.
You know what's weird? Rob is from Vernon, British Columbia, Canada, wanting to know how to be a more proactive atheist. And Rory was from Vernon, British Columbia, Canada, wanting to know how to be a more proactive atheist. I'm wondering if the call screener just changed the name and didn't get it all right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, well. Anyway.
I always get nervous when people start saying things like, life would be so much better after I'm dead.
Yeah.
I've known too many people who followed that down a road.
I'm just baffled at people that claim to not know what they believe. How can you not know what you believe?
Yeah, and know in the being aware of.
Yeah.
And I used to say that it was impossible for you to believe something and not know it. I've had to kind of revise that a little bit. Because I think it's so. I think that you always act in accordance with your beliefs, but I don't think that you're always aware of your beliefs, because where beliefs intersect, like I believe it's wrong to lie, but that's too general.
Yeah.
So it's this specific situation where I actually believe that it's right to lie, and I don't find out that that's what I believe until I actually do it.
Yeah, and
That's about as fuzzy as I could get.